The Nevada desert was an unbroken expanse of golden sands and jagged rocks, baking under the unrelenting glare of the sun. Jack Dolan squinted through the shimmering waves of heat as he tightened the final bolt on an old pickup truck. His garage, aptly named Oasis Garage, was the last stop for anything mechanical within 100 miles. Jack took pride in fixing what others deemed beyond repair. The day seemed ordinary until it wasn't. Jack was just closing his toolbox when the ground rumbled beneath his boots. A low, thunderous sound rolled across the desert, growing louder with every second. He looked up just in time to see a blazing streak of fire cutting through the blue sky. Whatever it was, it hurtled down at an alarming speed, trailing smoke and flame. "What the hell?" Jack muttered, shielding his eyes against the glare as it slammed into the desert floor a few miles away. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the air, followed by a plume of sand and debris rising into the sky. Jack's heart pounded as he watched the dust cloud settle. Curiosity warred with caution. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't normal. But Jack had never been the type to let fear win. Grabbing his toolkit, a flashlight, and a canteen of water, he climbed into his battered old truck and headed toward the crash site. The drive was rough, the terrain uneven and littered with jagged rocks, but Jack had driven through worse. As he neared the site, his truck's headlights illuminated the strange object. It was no meteorite. It was a spacecraft. The ship was sleek, metallic, and clearly otherworldly. Its surface shimmered faintly even under the harsh desert sun, reflecting an iridescent glow. A jagged tear ran along its side, revealing charred edges and sparking wires. The craft hummed faintly, like a giant beast breathing its last. Jack parked a safe distance away and approached cautiously, his toolkit in one hand and flashlight in the other. The closer he got, the more intricate the craft's design appeared. It was like nothing he'd ever seen in the countless machines he'd repaired. Symbols he couldn't decipher adorned its surface, and strange lights flickered erratically along its hull. "This is nuts," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. His hand trembled slightly as he reached out to touch the cool, metallic surface. The hum grew louder, as if the ship recognized his presence. A faint hiss drew his attention to a seam in the hull. The ship's door, or what he assumed was a door, slid open with a sluggish, mechanical groan. Jack froze, every instinct screaming at him to turn and run. But curiosity, ever his driving force, kept him rooted to the spot. Inside the ship, smoke swirled in the dim light. The interior was as alien as the exterior, filled with panels, consoles, and what looked like a crystalline structure pulsing faintly. But it was the figure slumped against the far wall that caught Jack's eye. It was massive, easily 8 feet tall, and humanoid in shape. Its body was a blend of metal and something Jack couldn't identify, almost organic in texture. Sparks flickered from its chest, and a deep gash exposed intricate circuits and tubing that leaked a viscous, glowing fluid. Jack approached cautiously, his heart pounding. "Hey," he called out, unsure if the thing could even hear him. "You alive?" The figure didn't respond, but its head tilted slightly, and a single eye, or what resembled an eye, flickered weakly with a soft blue light. It was enough to make Jack's decision for him. He couldn't leave it here. Summoning all his strength, Jack dragged the alien figure out of the wreckage. It was heavier than anything he'd ever lifted, but adrenaline and determination propelled him forward. Once he had the figure in the truck's bed, he drove back to the garage, his mind racing with questions. Who or what was this thing? Was it dangerous? And what the hell was he supposed to do with it? Back at the garage, Jack set the alien down on his workbench, his mechanic's instincts kicking in despite the absurdity of the situation. The gash in its chest looked fixable if he approached it like a machine. Tools in hand, Jack took a deep breath. "All right, big guy," he muttered. "Let's see if I can't bring you back online." As he worked, the alien's faint hum grew steadier, and its blue eye flickered more brightly. Jack felt a strange sense of connection to the being, as though he were meant to find it. He didn't know it yet, but this chance encounter would change his life forever. The garage's overhead lights buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow over the room as Jack examined the alien figure sprawled across his largest workbench. Up close, the details of its construction were breathtaking. Its torso was a blend of sleek, metal plating and organic material that seemed to ripple subtly, as though alive. Tiny filaments flickered within its wounds, sparking faintly like the exposed nerves of some advanced cybernetic organism. Jack's hand hovered over the gash in its chest. The viscous, glowing fluid that seeped from its damaged circuits had a faint, otherworldly scent, sharp, metallic, and oddly sweet. It reminded him of the ozone tang in the air after a lightning storm. "Okay, big guy," Jack muttered under his breath. "Let's figure out how you work." Years of working on machines of all shapes and sizes had given Jack a near-instinctive understanding of mechanical systems, but this was different. Alien technology was like an entirely new language, but one with just enough similarities to Earth's engineering for him to puzzle it out, at least, he hoped. Jack grabbed a screwdriver and gently pried open a section of the alien's chest plating. Beneath it lay a network of glowing conduits, interwoven like veins. Each tube pulsed faintly, feeding into a central core that radiated a soft blue light. The damage was severe, several conduits were severed, and what appeared to be a crystalline component was cracked down the middle. "Looks like your power core took a hit," Jack said, glancing at the cracked crystal. "I'm gonna need to patch that up if you're gonna come back to life." He rummaged through his toolbox, pulling out a soldering iron, some wire, and a roll of electrical tape. It wasn't exactly cutting-edge repair equipment, but it would have to do. Jack worked carefully, stripping and reconnecting the severed conduits with a precision born of years spent repairing everything from ancient tractors to state-of-the-art drones. The alien systems were far beyond anything he'd encountered, but he treated it like any other job, one step at a time. As he worked, the alien began to stir. A faint hum resonated through its body, growing louder as Jack reconnected more circuits. Its single blue eye flickered, dim at first, then brighter. Jack stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow, as the alien's head tilted slightly, its gaze locking onto him. "Whoa," Jack said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Take it easy. You're still pretty banged up." The alien's voice was a low, resonant vibration that seemed to bypass Jack's ears and resonate directly in his mind. "System integrity at 40%. Power core unstable. Structural repairs initiated. Query, identity of operator?" Jack blinked. "Operator? I'm Jack. Jack Dolan. I'm the guy who just saved your metal butt." The alien's eye flared briefly, as if processing his words. "Acknowledged. Designation, Jack. Status, non-hostile. Inquiry, purpose of intervention?" Jack scratched the back of his head. "Honestly? I saw you crash and figured you needed help. That's kind of my thing. Fixing stuff." The alien's head tilted further, almost like a nod. "Assistance acknowledged. Core system stabilizing. Remaining functional designation, KOR 27. Inquiry, current location?" "You're in my garage," Jack said, gesturing around the cluttered space. "Middle of nowhere, Nevada. Earth. You know where that is, right?" KOR's eye dimmed briefly, as if deep in thought. "Planetary designation, Sol 3. Galactic Quadrant, Beta 4. Mission parameters, incomplete. Core directive, protection of primary asset. Primary asset, status unknown." Jack frowned. "Primary asset? You mean your pilot? Or whoever was flying that ship?" KOR's tone darkened. "Primary asset terminated. Mission failure imminent. Recalibrating directive." The alien's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Whoever or whatever it had been protecting was gone. Jack felt a pang of sympathy. He knew what it was like to lose something you were supposed to care for. "Hey," he said, placing a hand gently on the edge of KOR's metal frame. "You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out. First things first, though, let's get you fixed up." For the next several hours, Jack worked tirelessly, and KOR assisted as much as its limited functionality allowed. Together, they repaired the cracked crystal using a piece of tempered glass Jack had in his workshop and reinforced the conduits with earth-made wiring. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to stabilize KOR's systems. As the final connection snapped into place, KOR's eye flared brightly, its hum now a steady, powerful thrum. It sat up on the workbench, its movements fluid but deliberate. For a moment, it simply looked at Jack, as though evaluating him. "Directive recalibrated," KOR said. "Priority, protection of secondary asset. Designation, Jack Dolan." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Wait, what? Secondary asset? You mean me?" "Affirmative." "New directive accepted." Jack shook his head, half amused, half exasperated. "Well, that's great and all, but I'm not exactly in danger out here. You don't have to dash." Before he could finish, a loud knock echoed from the garage door, followed by a gruff voice. "This is Agent Travis with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Open up. We know you're harboring extraterrestrial technology." Jack and KOR exchanged a glance. "So much for not being in danger," Jack muttered, grabbing a wrench as KOR's eye flared with renewed intensity. "Looks like we've got company." The garage fell silent as Jack and KOR exchanged tense glances. Outside, the muffled sounds of heavy boots crunching gravel and low murmurs suggested there was more than one person waiting. Jack's mind raced, torn between panic and determination. KOR, however, seemed unnervingly calm. "Priority, protection of secondary asset," KOR said, its tone unwavering. The single blue eye fixed on Jack. "Prepare for defensive measures." "Defensive measures?" Jack hissed. "They're not aliens or whatever they're government agents. You can't just blast them to pieces." "Non-lethal protocols engaged," KOR replied, scanning the room with precision. "Suggested action, seek cover. Imminent breach detected." As if on cue, the metallic clang of a crowbar striking the garage door echoed through the space, followed by the screech of metal giving way. Jack grabbed a large wrench from his workbench, not entirely sure what he planned to do with it. He darted behind a stack of oil barrels, hard hammering in his chest. The door crashed open, and 3 agents in tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised. Their leader, a tall man with a sharp jawline and cold eyes, stepped forward, scanning the room. "Jack Dolan," the man barked. "We know you're in here. Hand over the extraterrestrial technology, and no one gets hurt." KOR's eye flared. In one swift motion, it rose to its full height, stepping into the open. The agents froze, their weapons snapping toward the towering figure. Jack peered out from his hiding spot, equal parts terrified and awestruck. "Unregistered approach detected," KOR announced, its voice a resonant hum that filled the garage. "You are advised to vacate the premises immediately." The lead agent's lips curled into a grim smile. "I don't think so. Stand down, or we'll be forced to open fire." KOR tilted its head slightly, as though calculating something. "Threat detected. Defensive measures activating." Before the agents could react, KOR extended its arm, and a shimmering field of blue energy rippled outward, enveloping the room. The agents shouted in surprise as their weapons were yanked from their hands and clattered to the floor, disarmed by the field's magnetic force. A pulse of light sent them staggering backward, their movements sluggish as though weighed down by an unseen force. "What the lead agent stammered, struggling to lift his arm. Jack stepped out from his hiding spot, clutching his wrench like a lifeline. "Core. What the hell are you doing? Non-lethal measures implemented, KOR replied calmly. Hostiles neutralized. Jack glanced at the agents, who were still conscious but effectively immobilized. He took a shaky breath and turned to the lead agent. Look, I don't know what you think you're going to find here, but you're making a mistake. KOR isn't some weapon or a science project. It's alive. The agent glared at Jack. You don't know what you're dealing with. That thing is a security risk to the entire planet. Jack's jaw tightened. The only risk here is you guys storming in like you own the place. KOR's not a threat unless you make it one. KOR stepped forward, towering over the agent. Secondary asset statement aligns with observed behavior. I pose no threat unless provoked. Recommend immediate withdrawal. The tension hung thick in the air, but the agent finally nodded to his team. Fall back, he ordered reluctantly. For now. The agents collected their weapons and retreated, but not before the lead agent shot Jack a warning look. This isn't over, Dolan. We'll be watching. As the sound of their vehicles faded into the distance, Jack slumped against a nearby workbench, exhaustion washing over him. That was intense, he muttered. He glanced up at KOR, who seemed completely unfazed. What the hell happened to keeping a low profile? Low profile compromised by external factors, KOR replied simply. Directive remains, protect Jack Dolan. Jack shook his head, a mix of exasperation and reluctant gratitude bubbling to the surface. Well, thanks for not turning them into paste, I guess. KOR's eye dimmed slightly, almost like a blink. Acknowledgement received. Current status, stable. Inquiry, next course of action? Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. Next course of action? I don't even know. Those guys are gonna be back, and they're not gonna stop until they get what they want. Maybe we should just run. KOR tilted its head. Retreat would ensure temporary safety but compromise long-term objectives. Suggestion, establish fortified parameters and develop countermeasures. Jack let out a dry laugh. You're serious, aren't you? Build a fortress? What, you gonna turn my garage into Fort Alien? KOR didn't respond, but the faint hum of its systems seemed to intensify, as though it were already calculating how to make that happen. Jack groaned and rubbed his temples. Great, he muttered. Looks like I'm stuck with you, big guy. KOR's eye flared briefly. Statement acknowledged. Bond with secondary assets solidified. Commencing preparations. Jack sighed again, but a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. As absurd as it all was, he couldn't deny one thing: he felt safer with KOR around. And maybe, just maybe, they had a chance to figure this mess out together. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Nevada desert in shades of crimson and gold. Inside the Oasis garage, Jack and KOR stood amidst the organized chaos of tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects. The events of the day weighed heavily on Jack, but KOR was already moving forward with unshakable focus. Material inventory complete, KOR announced. Structural reinforcement of garage perimeter can commence. Additional resources required for optimal defense systems. Jack leaned against the workbench, rubbing his temples. Let's get one thing straight, he said, pointing at KOR. I'm not building a fortress. This is a garage, not some alien military outpost. KOR's single blue eye glowed steadily. Observation: hostile entities remain a threat. Protective measures are necessary to ensure safety of secondary asset. Jack sighed. Yeah, I get that. But I don't want to turn this place into a war zone. There's gotta be a smarter way to handle this. KOR paused, its eye dimming slightly as if processing Jack's input. Acknowledged. Proposal: utilize adaptive camouflage and non-lethal deterrence to maintain low profile while ensuring security. Jack blinked. Camouflage? Like cloaking or something? Correct. Modifications to existing infrastructure can render the premises visually and electronically undetectable. Jack let out a low whistle. Okay, now you've got my attention. But where are we supposed to get the parts for something like that? I don't exactly have alien tech lying around. Existing terrestrial technology will suffice with minor enhancements, KOR replied. Your expertise in mechanical repair and improvisation is adequate for the task. Jack chuckled, despite himself. Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence. For the next several days, Jack and KOR worked tirelessly. Using scrap metal, wiring, and components scavenged from abandoned vehicles, they constructed a makeshift energy field generator. KOR integrated its own advanced circuitry to amplify the field's capabilities, creating a cloaking system that could mask the garage from drones, satellites, and even ground-based infrared scans. As they worked, Jack found himself growing more comfortable with KOR. The alien guardian's unwavering focus was tempered by moments of surprising empathy. When Jack's hands cramped after hours of soldering wires, KOR adjusted the tools for ergonomic use. When Jack missed a meal, KOR's sensors detected his declining energy levels and prompted him to eat. You're starting to sound like my mom, Jack joked one evening as he scarfed down a sandwich. Comparison noted, KOR replied. Parental figures prioritize asset maintenance. Observation aligns with current directive. Jack laughed. You're one weird robot, you know that? Clarification, cybernetic organism, KOR corrected. Jack smirked. Whatever you say, buddy. By the end of the week, the cloaking system was operational. Jack stood back, arms crossed, as KOR activated the device. A shimmering wave of energy spread across the garage, distorting the air like a heat mirage. Within seconds, the building seemed to disappear, blending seamlessly into the desert landscape. Not bad, Jack admitted, impressed. We might actually pull this off. But their success was short-lived. That night, a low, droning hum woke Jack from a restless sleep. He stumbled out of his small apartment attached to the garage to find KOR already scanning the horizon. Alert, KOR said. Unidentified aerial vehicle approaching. Origin, government. Jack cursed under his breath. How'd they find us? The cloak should have blocked everything. KOR's eye brightened. Possibility, vehicle equipped with experimental detection technology. Suggested action, evaluate. Jack clenched his fists. No way. I'm not running. This is my home. The droning grew louder, and moments later, a spotlight swept across the desert, illuminating the garage. The cloak flickered but held, masking the building from sight. Jack watched from the shadows as a black helicopter hovered overhead, its searchlight scanning futilely. Observation, cloaking system effective, KOR said. Hostiles unaware of our position. Jack exhaled slowly. Let's keep it that way. After what felt like an eternity, the helicopter veered away, disappearing into the night. Jack's shoulders sagged with relief, but the encounter left him shaken. The government wasn't going to give up, and he knew it was only a matter of time before they escalated their efforts. The next morning,